am going into my 4th year following the Lord, and one of the biggest things I've learned in my relationship with God is that He will take the smallest thing and turn it into glory for Him. Something that even the things that we feel like sometimes God is calling us to completely give up, He just turns it into something special. He turns something that people have made ugly and sinful into something beautiful, and He will use it to absolutely change your life. And honestly, that's what reading has become for me. Going into my story kind of with reading, when I first started reading, I feel like I never really read in school, like in middle school, high school. Like I only read what I was supposed to read, but there was a part of me that read, like when I was reading like Junie B. Jones and going to the library. I always loved literature. Lit class, always my favorite class. Always was my favorite class. Reading books was always something that interested me, but I never really took seriously until like probably maybe like 2018, 2019, 2020. All the books I read back then were romance books. I started off reading on Wattpad. If you watch my other video about how the Lord convicted me from not reading smut anymore, then you already know that story. But if you haven't, I would love to tell it again right now. But I started off reading on Wattpad, and then I went to physical books, and they were all romance books. They all had smut in them. They all had I had no type of boundaries. I was just reading anything pretty much that would tickle that little romance, I don't know what you call it, in my brain. Literally, I would read anything that did that for me. And when I first became a Christian, I didn't completely give it up. I feel like I read a little less, but it did take a while for me to completely just unhaul all my books. I used to have so many more books than this, guys. Like I used to have, if I can find a clip of how many books I used to have, and in the same exact room, by the way, in the same exact room, I had books spread everywhere. And if I can find that clip, I will put it in here. It's probably in one of my old vlogs, but I used to have so many more books than this. And now, like, I had to get rid of so many books because the Lord told me to. And now I just feel like so absolutely grateful that I get to read again, and in a way that honors the Lord. So yeah, back then when I used to read, I used to just read as an escape. I used to read just for entertainment, even though I still do read for entertainment, let's be honest. But it was just simply more of an escape from life itself, and just something for me to do to avoid the problems and avoid the things that were going on in my life. And there's a big difference between why and how I read now than how I read back and why I read back then. But the biggest thing is I read now to honor God. And there was always a part of me that never really thought that was possible. I thought I had to get rid of all my books and just get rid of reading as a hobby altogether. But last year especially, I keep forgetting it's 2026 now. I want to say like this year. But like no, last year especially, I feel like I really did just rebuild. The Lord really did rebuild a love for reading in me, and He rebuilt it for me in a way where I could honor Him. And that is so special to me because, you know, the Lord, sometimes He just doesn't have to do things. I love how now reading has become one of those things that brings me closer to the Lord. That's such a special thing for me to say, that reading brings me closer to the Lord. Like fictional books, and I see Him and everything. And I just want to make this video to simply make it for that girl who is a little bit convicted, but she's not all the way there. And I'm just hoping this video helps you take that step towards just freedom, because there is so much freedom in the Lord, and there's so much freedom in giving up what the Lord wants you to give up. Even as something as simple as books. And it doesn't seem like, oh, it's not that serious. Oh, it's not that deep. It really is. It really is that deep. So I just wanted to go into right quick and just explain to you guys like why reading really is that deep, and that what we consume consumes us. And this can be applied to reading, TV shows, the music we listen to, and the people we hang out with, all this stuff. Like, what we consume consumes us. And if you are constantly assuming and if you are constantly consuming things that don't glorify the Lord, that actually glorify sin. If you're constantly consuming things that glorify sin, that sin is going to consume you. If you're constantly looking at things that the Lord is trying to pull you away from, how are you going to make any type of progress? How are you going to grow closer to the Lord? And the music you listen to, the books you read, how is any of that going to be possible? But as someone who has noticed a difference between what I read now and what I read back then, what I watch now and what I watched back then, like, it really is so important that you are always mindful of what you're reading and what you're watching and the music that you're listening to. Because the devil will use those things to pull you away from the Lord, especially if you are listening to things that are literally meant to pull you away from the Lord. In this video, I said I was gonna like share my like personal convictions, you know, like quote unquote rules I have when it comes to reading. But I don't want this to sound like I'm telling you only read Christian books, unless that's what you personally want to do. And I'm not telling you to only listen to like Christian music and only watch Christian TV shows. No, I'm just saying that you need to not be consuming things that are pulling you away from the Lord. That is what I'm saying. 2 Bible verses I wanted to share in this video are in 1 Corinthians. And the first one, they basically say the same thing, but in 2 different fonts. And the first one is 1 Corinthians 6:12, and it says, "You say I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything." And the second verse is 1 Corinthians 10:23, and it says, "You say I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial." And that's kind of what I live by when it comes to consuming things. Like, what am I consuming? Yes, I am allowed to watch and read. I'm allowed to read any book I want to read. But not every book that I read is going to be beneficial for me, especially as a Christian. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I read only Christian books now. And I only read books that are written by Christian authors, and every single book I read has Christian themes in them. I'm not going to sit here and say that, but I am saying that no book that I'm going to read is going to pull me away from the Lord, and no book I read is going to glorify the things that Jesus died for. Those are the things that I feel like absolutely no Christian should be reading. Like, we all love different genres. It's so beautiful how God has made us all so different, and we're all into different things. We all have different personalities, and I don't feel like there's a certain genre or like certain genres Christians should be reading, but I feel like we all should be reading things that are beneficial to us as Christian people. And I just really wanted to say that as to where all my convictions were stemming from, where they came from, and they came from the Lord. They came from the Bible, of course. So I'm actually gonna give you guys a bookshelf tour in 1 second, but like I was telling you guys about how God completely changed my reading taste, this is my very first Christian fiction book I ever picked up, and the first book that actually made me think like, hey, I really do want to read books that glorify the Lord, if that makes sense. This is a fiction book. Some people may call this a Christian romance. I don't call this a Christian romance because if you read a Francine Rivers book, then you know like all her books are about so much more than the romance to me. It's so much deeper than that, and she puts so much more than that. I love Francine Rivers, if you can tell. But this is the first book that really opened my eyes up to Christian fiction and just how I can really use my hobby and my love of reading to glorify the Lord. So yeah, and now I'm gonna share my life. No, I'm not gonna do that. But I'm not gonna say rule because rule sounds so weird. My first guide, these are my guidelines, my convictions, whatever you want to call them. And the first one is I do not read any book with spice or smut in them. It's just simply a non-negotiable for me. And I just think that the conversation about whether or not as Christians we should be reading books with spice and smut in them is just quite silly. I just feel like the answer is simply no, and we can even go to Philippians and look at the verse saying how we should think about these things that are honorable. And and as someone who had a porn addiction and a masturbating problem and used to read lust-filled books 24/7, the lust-filled books would always be reading that lust-filled book first, and then I would go and watch porn, and then I would go and it would just be like this constant cycle. And so no, I will never be touching a book with smut or spice in it for me. And it's been a really hard conviction because I know like there's those certain books that have like a little in it but not a lot. But me personally, I try to just stay away from it, just like period. Like if there's like if there's like a scene where it's open door and it gets descriptive and it gets into it, I don't want to touch that book. I don't want to read that book. That's just my personal thing. I don't try to touch it, period. But I know there's books out there that has like a little spice or a little scene, but it doesn't really like have any, like you can read, like if you can't read the book without, like you can read the book without the spice, like you can literally rip that page out and the book can be the same, you know what I'm saying? But me personally, I just don't even touch it. That's just me. I just don't touch it. And another one, I should have said this first, is that having my Bible time before I start reading any type of book that's not the Bible. This is just something to hold me accountable because I never want to be in a place in my life where I'm reading more fictional books but I'm not reading my Bible. That's just simple. Like I try to read a chapter of the Bible today. I try to read my devotional every day, and if I haven't done that, then I shouldn't be reading one of these. Like we're not gonna skip steps, you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, these books aren't the Bible. We have to go to the Bible to read the Bible. We need to be getting in the Bible to be getting into the Word. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't be getting the Word from anything but the Bible at the end of the day. And these things will draw us back to the Word. They're not the Word, if that makes sense. Something else, anytime, and this was really difficult, literally, this is always difficult at the end of the year. Just any book that has any type of witchcraft, too much magical thing. It's just anything that feels a little like new agey, like a little too much new agey. And sometimes I feel like there is a way that you can do that where it cannot make me uncomfortable. There is books that are like whimsical. I do like whimsical books, but I feel like when it comes to like the word witch, just like I don't know, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie. The word rich, not rich. The word witch makes me just like a little bit uncomfortable, and I just like don't really have any desire to read any book that's fictional or non-fictional about a witch and witchcraft and all the things, too much magic. Yeah. And I really do want to get into the Christian fantasy genre. Like I really do. I'm not like, fantasy's not like my #1 genre. I'm more of like, I feel like I'm really becoming more of like a historical fiction is my favorite genre, and then like probably romance, and then maybe like just fiction, and then maybe like mystery, and then like fantasy. So like I said, it's like different for me, and this is like easy for me not to read books like that, but you could be someone who's like super into fantasy, super into magic, and super into like whimsical things. And I feel like there is a way to glorify God like that. So like I really do want to have like a day or like a month where I'm reading Christian fantasy. So if you are in like Christian fantasy, like drop below some like Christian fantasy books. But yeah, no witchcraft books. Speaking of like mystery books, I feel like I mentioned mystery earlier. Mystery is the only genre I'll read as far as like scary books like goes. Like I like to stay in like the mystery lane, where it feels like I'm more of trying to like solve something and like going on a journey, like solving a case. I love books like that. But if something is classified as like horror, I don't know. I'm just not, I don't feel comfortable reading a book that's meant to draw me to fear, to be scared. And like I said, like, as someone who used to watch scary movies, like that stuff, like I said, we really do think it has absolutely no effects on us. But you go and watch a scary movie, you read a scary book, all of a sudden you're having these dreams about things that are scary, and you're locking your door when you come in and you're thinking about it. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. So yeah, as someone who is trying to put faith over fear, I'm not gonna bring more fear into my life. And don't even lie and say like, oh, it's just fiction, it's not real. That don't mean it's not scary. That don't mean it's not scary. And that doesn't mean, because I'm not gonna say I'm like easily scared, but I'm saying like I'm good at pretending I'm not scared, and then like I said, the next day or like that night, I'm literally gonna dream about something I read in that book that I said didn't scare me, and then I'm not gonna be able to sleep at night. And I'm not very nice if I don't get sleep. But the main reason why is because I'm trying to put my faith over my fear. So I'm not gonna read books that draw me into fear. So yeah, no horror books for me. I hope all that came off as like things I've learned on my journey from reading, and not as like, don't be doing this, don't be doing this, don't be doing this, don't be doing this. Because I am not here to judge you. I'm not here to freaking yell in your ear and be mean. But the truth will set you free, and there's a reason the Lord says not everything is beneficial. Oh, and one thing I forgot to say is that like when it comes to books that are like, and when I do my like bookshelf tour, you guys are gonna see all the classics I have. And I feel like sometimes with classics, I just want to read classics just to read classics. But I know there's some classics that really, what's that word? Philosophy. Because you know, like philosophy is basically like the study of like existence and like meaning, and like what does everything mean, and like why are we here, and all these things. And I think it's beautiful. There are a lot of books out there, I believe, that I have read and I'm looking forward to reading, that really do dive into both sides of like good versus evil. And I'm really excited to read books like that. But I know there's also books that are really more drawn towards the other side, if that makes sense. And even when I was like mentioning in one of my like in my TBR video, I said I was going to be reading James Baldwin, and a lot of people were telling me about what James Baldwin believed in, and a lot of the things that are in his books that are very like anti-Christian. And I didn't even know that. And I'm still going to read this James Baldwin book and see for myself. But it's kind of just like always having that sometimes the people who write these books have a particular motive, and that motive could be very anti-Christian. And that's all I want to say. And you know, sometimes people idolize certain things, and you won't notice it until you read a book for yourself. And I think another book that I've wanted to read is A Little Life. A Little Life is a book I really do. I see this book in Target all the time. and I've always wanted to pick it up, but like hearing about like a Christian perspective reading that book and how they wouldn't read that book again as a Christian because there's so much melancholy in that book, and not really a lot of like I said, like like I was talking about earlier, like redemption at the end, but the whole book is just melancholy and just glorifying sadness and glorifying life stinks, you know, stuff like that. Like I have no desire to read books like that, and even though a book like that is seen like a classic and sometimes you just want to read things just to read it, not everything is beneficial. And that's my last word. That's all I have to say. Not everything is beneficial, and sometimes we don't need to be reading things just to read things, just to knock it off. But you know, that's just me. Well, so now we're getting into the fun part where I give you guys a tour of my bookshelf. It's not really that organized, I'll be honest, but at the same time, it is organized. Up top here, these are, see, I don't know, like it was supposed to be like my to be read shelf at first, but it was so many books. There's so many unread books on my shelf that there's no way I could just have like one to be read shelf. Yeah, first of all, we have this hat here that I got from Book of the Month that's well read, which is my goal in life, to be a well read woman of God, by the way. But basically I would like to call these first two shelves my Christian fiction shelves, because pretty much it's just my Christian fiction books. And these two books up top are just two of my favorite reads, and it's a picture of me and my boyfriend. And yeah, they're not separated into read or unread, or books I have read or books I haven't. They're just kind of there. Like my books are kind of just really organized by genre, pretty much. That, and then we have these. I'm not gonna go through every single book because we'll be here for hours. And yeah, so basically all that is basically all my Christian fiction books. And there's a duck on here because I don't know why. I don't really know. But these are all my classic books. These are books that are literally defined as classics, and I don't know why I'm trying to explain that. But I like to call it my black YA romance shelf. Well, not really, not all of them are romance books, but my black YA shelf. And I really do want to fill this shelf up because black YA books, YA books in general, I feel like they're kind of underrated. And I feel like as somebody who is 25 years old, I feel like I shouldn't be reading these books, but these are some, like, most of them, I think YA books should be clean, but most YA books are clean, and I get to read about books about girls who look like me, which is something growing up when I actually was like in middle school and in high school. Like I didn't have books like that to read. I didn't know about them, but now I do, and like I'm gonna keep these books forever. And one day my daughter could read these, and she could read about books about someone who looks like her and how to be properly loved, you know. And yeah, and then under this shelf though, it's just my normal YA books. Just not really, I don't have a lot actually. Yeah, I actually don't really have a lot if I really think about it. I never did. I still haven't finished the series, by the way. I really need to finish that, and I need to finish this series too, but yeah. And then at the very, very bottom, I love this. Those are just literally fictional books. They're just fiction. There's an Emily Henry book down there. And as far as writers and lovers goes, and what's that other book? I don't know if I'm gonna read that still because I'm feeling kind of personally convicted by it. But and those two random books I got from Book of the Month. Yay! And this shelf right here is all my Christian non-fiction books. Literally, it has its own personal shelf because I have so many Christian non-fiction books. So yeah, that is basically everything I wanted to do in this video. I just wanted to talk to you guys about my reading journey and how what happens when you submit it to the Lord, and how walking with God is so beautiful. And don't ever be afraid to give up anything for the Lord, because he'll make it better. And yeah, that's all I have to say. And drop down below how the Lord changed your reading life, your favorite Christian books. You know, I love talking about books, and I love that you guys love me talking about books. And just a little incentive for you guys to come back, subscribe to my channel. I am going to be reading Little Woman. Not to brag, but I will be reading Little Woman for the first time, and I'm going to be vlogging it. And I'm going to be doing a reading vlog. So I'm really excited, actually, because I've heard so many great things about this book. And yeah, so, and I kind of want to do like a series of like where I'm like reading classics, and then like giving like my takeaway, especially like as a Christian. And I really want to turn it into a series, and this is going to be the first one. So you should totally subscribe and come back to see that. Okay. That's all I got. And yeah, I love you guys very much, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Go read your Bible, and then go read yourself a good book. And y'all have a fantastic day, because that's what I'm gonna do, because it's my off day. So bye.